Hello and welcome to Week 6, Unit 3 of Application Development for SAP Business by Design. In this unit, we're going to actually go ahead and deploy our original solution. So in the previous unit, we looked at the overview of the life cycle of a solution, what it takes to deploy, the different steps that are involved. Now we'll actually go ahead and go through the process. We will assemble and download our solution, and that's actually going to give us this zip file, which is our solution file, that version of our solution file, which we can take. And we'll go ahead and go to another tenant that I have available here and be able to upload that and activate it. Now this is just a demo for this case in this class, so I'm going to go ahead and demo that right now for you. So I'm here in the SAP Cloud Application Studio, logged in with my development user, and my user, not only is it development, I also happen to have the administrative Work Center view assigned to me as well, so I am also an admin and can work with the life cycle of a solution. It's important that if you need to have this Work Center view assigned, it's still part of the Partner Development Work Center, but that's what actually gives you the authorization to go through the life cycle and assemble and download and upload and activation process. So some things that I want to do, I make sure my development is okay and I'm happy with everything. I would need to make sure that I check in on my files, and I can do that from the top, and anybody else that's developing here should check in their files as well. If anything is actually checked out, the assemble and download will fail and it'll ask us to make sure that that is taken care of. It's also helpful if I make sure that everything is active and correct. The assemble and download is going to try and activate everything anyways, so I don't need to necessarily worry about it too much, because if it doesn't activate, it won't download the solution, but it just saves me some time to make sure that it's okay and correct. So up here I have the lifecycle toolbar, and I want to use this implementation manager. And this is really what I need to be able to manage the lifecycle of the solution. If I go to administration, I can also open it here and be able to work with it there. But you see now that I have version 1, which is the initial version. It's in development. If I go to the version history, there are no other versions that are here. It just says that when I worked with the solution, when it was created, what's the status of my tenant, etc. And this is where I'm going to do all of the life cycle of my solution. So I'm happy with everything. If I wanted to now, I could download a copy. And what that's going to do is it's just going to give me a copy of the solution. It'll treat it like a new solution. So I could take a copy of it at this point in time and be able to see that and use it somewhere else. Maybe I want to take a copy and try out some new development somewhere else, or even in this tenant where I want to see if we're going to prototype a new project and see if it's going to work. If so, I can come back to this solution and implement the same content. But it's not the normal part of the life cycle. I wouldn't download a copy and deploy that. It really gives you a copy of the solution and it treats it as a completely new solution. So it's available there to try things out, to be able to keep a copy and be able to reference it maybe. But this copy, though, again to mention, is still going to be tied to this specific customer. I can't download a copy and then upload it to a new customer's tenant. The solution is still a customer-specific solution. So for us, though, we want to use the assemble and download. This is what's actually going to try and allow us to get a copy of the solution to deploy. Now I can see here that it's going to ask me where do I want to save it. So it gives us a name of the solution, the technical name, and which version it is, and then you can see in the parentheses here is the actual name I gave it. I'm just going to go ahead and save it to my desktop, and now it's going to check a few things. It's going to make sure that we have our BOK element in place, that we have everything checked in, and that it can activate everything. And this, depending on the size of your solution, can take a little while. Sometimes it can be very quick. It depends on the content of your solution. So this is going to go through and assemble and download the solution. And once that's done, we will be able to have the solution file, which is a zip file for us, which we'll be able to deploy to other tenants. And then we'll see this, the status will change. It'll still be version 1 for us, but the status will change, and then my solution will actually be locked. So as I start this and after this process completes, I will not be able to continue development in this solution at this time until I create what's called a patch solution. And we'll get into a patch solution in the next unit. Now after I have this solution file, once it's done assembling and downloading, I can deploy it to anywhere else. I can deploy it to another test tenant of this customer. or I can deploy it directly to production. It's up to me and the customer landscape of what I want to do. It's very nice, obviously, if I have a development and a test and a production tenant, because then I can develop in this tenant, I can download and upload to the test tenant, allow the customer to test there, separate of my development tenant, separate of any kind of junk data I might have from development, from testing there, and it gives a nice clean separation. And once I was happy with that, I could take that same solution file and go ahead and deploy it to production if I want to. Otherwise, if I just have test and production, it's also perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I would just have done my testing, and at this point I would be okay with deploying to production. So once I have this file, it's ready to deploy to any tenant that the customer may have. Okay, my solution is done with the assemble and download step. If I look in the studio here, I can see that it is assembled. That if I go to the version history, I can see that, okay, there were no errors. It did assemble. If there was a problem, it would report some kind of error here and ask me to try again and maybe say what that problem was or where to look for solving that issue. But thankfully, there were no problems here, which is great. And I have my solution file now, which is the zip file available to me to be able to deploy to other systems. Now I could go and upload this myself. I could give it to somebody else. I'm going to go ahead and upload this myself as it is. I have a target tenant here already set up for me, and so I want to at least demo this portion to you of being able to upload it. I will say really quick about this zip file. One thing I want to point out is that it does contain all of the content of your solution. Obviously you can't directly view everything within here. For example, Windows doesn't know how to respond to what your floor plan file is, and a lot of it won't make sense to us anyways. But one thing you can see is the code for your business objects and the actions. So here's my bonus plan object. I can see what the code looked like at time of deployment. And this is nice because I can keep these solution files if I want. Even though I can't redeploy them if a tenant is already at a higher version. So obviously if my target tenant is at version 3, I can't redeploy solution file 1, but I can still see what the code for my object and actions and events looked like during version 1. So this gives me a chance to see what it is, and maybe I want to be able to refer back to it if I wanted to. So this is available to me at least. I can look at that, view it, and have it as a reference. And so it's kind of a way of having versioning you can think of, or at least some type of version history for your objects. So at least at deployment time you can see what they were. With that though, let's go ahead and upload this. So I have my target tenant. And I'm going to go ahead and upload it. I'm logged in again with the user with administrative rights, SAP Cloud Application Studio administrative rights, so the administration view from the Partner Development Work Center. I'm going to open the Implementation Manager, and let's go ahead and upload now. And I'm just going to go ahead and select my file and upload it here. You can see it doesn't already exist in this tenant. When I go to upload, anytime I upload any either uploading for the first time or patches, it gives me this little disclaimer basically saying, you're uploading some custom content into your tenant. You need to be aware that you're making changes to the standard solution and that you're responsible for the changes and what may happen with those. So for example, if there's a bug in my custom code, I'm responsible for it. It's for me to fix. It's not for SAP, or it's not a problem of SAP Business by Design to correct a bug in my code. And so that I'm aware that, yes, I'm also modifying the behavior of the system so that if it changes, if it behaves differently, it's because of my solution, if my solution is touching that area. So I'm going to allow that to happen, and this is going to go through the upload state. It'll go ahead, upload all the content, and if there is, again, a problem here, it'll give me a warning or an error afterwards of if there was an issue. Thankfully, usually there is no issues, or very rarely, I could say, do I encounter issues. A lot of times it all goes very smoothly. Okay, my solution is now uploaded. I can see that it says upload of the solution is complete, and to activate it, it tells me the version, which 1 is the correct version in this case. Also the status is in deployment. We're currently deploying it. If If I go to the version history, I can see that it's in deployment, and the tenant status will show me any tenants on a particular system that belong to the same customer and where this solution exists. So for right now, we see that it's on this tenant and that it's open. And I can go ahead now and hit this little activate button. Now this is going to go through and activate, and the nice thing is once I've uploaded it, it required me to wait there to make sure it uploaded before I could hit activate. Now after the activate starts, you'll see it'll release the screen back to me, even though right now it's uploading. Here we go, now it's done it. It tells me that it is activating and that it's in progress, and if I go to version history, again I can see here version 1, it showed me the upload was complete, and it says a bunch of steps that did happen during that upload, and now it shows me the activation. And here it's showing me what's the current activation status, what is it doing, what kind of content through each step it goes. And it'll say if something was actually needed or not, or if it can be ignored. So for example, if I didn't have any analytics content, it would check for analytics content and see there wasn't and move on. And I can keep refreshing this, and as it goes through, it's going to go through the activation, activate all the content, and then it's going to go ahead and do what's called a data update, where for any data that's on the current system for the solution, it makes sure that the data, the structures are updated correctly around that data. It doesn't necessarily change the data that's in there, it just performs some operations in the back end for it to function properly after the solution is deployed. And as I continue to allow this to activate, as I hit refresh, it'll keep updating, and if I see that something else has happened, great. And I can let this go for a while and always come back to it, or I can sit here and keep an eye on it. And you'll notice eventually it's going to either be completed, or if there's an error, it would tell me. And this log here is very important, because if there is an error in your activation, one thing you want to do is first try this reactivate button. This reactivate will basically clean everything and reactivate. To talk about cleaning, the cleaning will basically delete all of the generated objects and artifacts, and then recreate them for you. Not delete them from your solution, but in the backend itself. And so it kind of gives it a fresh start to reactivate everything. And so you want to try that, and if that still fails, you'll want to make sure you file an incident in that particular tenant, your target tenant. And in that incident, put as much detail as you can about what it is. What's the technical name of the solution, so the Y ID that you'll see, even the name of it as well. Give some info about this is the version I'm deploying, and then give a screenshot or a copy of this log. And it's going to give you all the info of where it actually failed, and then it might even say file an incident for this particular component. And go ahead and put that in the incident info as well. And the point is that the more info you can give in such type of a situation, a lot quicker and easier it will be for the development team to be able, and support to be able to address the issue that you're having during your activation. So it's the tool itself, errors during uploading, not very common, but they do obviously occur, so to be prepared, that's what you should do. Now this is activating right now, and what I want to do is once it's done, I want to make sure that I go into the front end and scope in my solution. Right? I want to go into the business configuration, find out where it was in the path that I uploaded, and I set my question, and I want to hit it, select it to yes. So I want to enable the custom content of this solution. And I'll need some type of implementation project that's open for that, whether I already have an existing one or need to create a new one. But then once I do that once, that's enough. I don't have to do it again, thankfully. I can just do that. And then that will be all we need for deploying. So here, we basically just went through the implementation manager, and we use that, and that's really our lifecycle management tool within the SAP Cloud Application Studio. And for there, we can go ahead and assemble and download our solution. And again, that kind of locks it out for future development until we go into the next phase. It's going to change that status to assembled. And even in the target solution, once it's activated, it's going to be deployed there. We see that the version stays at version 1 for now, which is correct for us. And of course, if I have any issues or errors, I want to make sure I retry whatever step it is I'm doing. And if I further have issues there, and it's not something that it clearly tells me how I can fix it, I can go ahead and file an incident. And if you do, just make sure you put as much detail and info as you can within that incident. And that is how we will go ahead and deploy. So that's deploying our original solution. In the next step, in the next unit, we'll go ahead and talk about patch solutions. So with that, thank you very much.